vegetation either. Oh, okay. I don't know why.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm Rosie Reed, and we're here to talk about the Contemporary Collaborations project, which Rosie did with her installation, The Grandmothers.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll begin asking you, when you first came into the Robert Young Antique Shop, like what first drew you to working with the toys in the antique collection?
I think when you first go into Robert Young, it's so overwhelming because it's such a haven of just so many beautiful objects. And I couldn't really decide what to go to first, but immediately this toy carriage, Victorian toy carriage, caught my eye. I think because everything else seemed to have such purpose, or would have had such purpose previously, and you could kind of see what position these objects might have held in a domestic setting, or mainly domestic settings. And then I saw this toy, and it sort of stood out in something that was played with, I guess, and existed very differently to the other objects. And so I think that's what started my interest in the antique toy.
And I was going to ask about your choice of using the attic boxes to display the worlds that you created for these toys to exist in.
I was reading Rebecca Solnit at the time, and she spoke about accessing the things that we didn't learn through formal education, and she called these the grandmothers in her essay, The Grandmothers. And I think I thought about accessing those points of myself that I wasn't taught formally, and I thought about, and in that process I just thought about opening up attic boxes to areas of yourself that you're not obviously aware of, I guess. So yeah, that's where the box idea, and cardboard I think I've worked with before, and I love it as a material, and it was a good opportunity to go back to cardboard.
And so how did you sort of come about like deciding which worlds to create for each box?
I think it was a mixture of things. I always have very literary influences, so things I've read, but also I think worlds that I would like to be in, or places that I think they just came to me in loads of different ways over the course of making each different box. And also imagining the boxes I made for the toys I loved creating, because imagining these toys in completely different worlds to that of Robert Young's Antiques I thought was fun. And I really enjoyed making the show, and I think that comes through in the sort of then the colour, and also the very different styles of each box.
Yeah, absolutely. The colours just absolutely popped out. Yeah. I guess following on from that, like how did the sort of material choices sort of influence the work as well? Like, can you talk a bit about the process of of making it?
Well, I always use jesmonite plaster and marble dust to sort of create textures and pigments and paints. My practice is very material based and lead, so I love using lots of different types of materials and experimenting with new ones. And I think the challenge of making this show was making miniatures, because normally I work on a larger scale to that. So I kept the foundations of material that I knew to explore a different scale, basically.
Yeah.
So that was where the challenges came in making small things, which I'd never done before.
And we did a research trip to the Museum of Childhood, which was really fascinating. And also we learned a lot from Robert Young. We were asking him questions about the specific toys that you selected from his collection.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, if you could talk a bit about how the sort of history of these toys sort of influenced the installation.
I think that trip was amazing, and seeing Rachel Reed's Doll's House installation was a real starting point to the boxes as well. And I think also because I selected the Victorian carriage, and we saw there's the whole section of wheeled toys in the museum, and when more kinetic toys came into play in the history of toys, and that was fascinating. But also the peg dolls I loved, and how I like sort of how modest they are in the way that they're made and dressed. And we saw the peg dolls in the museum, so it was nice to make all the links and learn more about the origins of these toys. It was a really good trip, actually.
Thanks so much for bringing on the Young Antiques.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I loved it, and I can't wait to see the future installations in that space. It's an amazing opportunity to work with such beautiful objects and a shop like that. I loved it.